This week on Induction Noise. I try some words of encouragement.
It's like you're in there.
Niku tries to solicit a crime.
I'm going to tell him you got to kill a hairdresser. Don't you want your haircut, mate?
And Andre tells us what he looks for in a partner.
The testicular fortitude.
Hi guys, welcome back to Induction Noise. We are once again short of Neil, which is a shame, but we do have Andre here.
I mean,
What now?
It's
What-
like
what
you
do I
never
mean?
left.
Okay.
We also have Niku.
I'll take double the load on myself. That's fine. Carry
Carry
for
the weight,
team.
carry the massive weight.
Carry the
of
team on my
Neil.
back. You know, it's
Well, how's it going, guys?
We really should start thinking about a different way to start the show because it's just the same thing every day.
I mean, consistency is...
We can start doing it in German. Guten Tag, wie geht's?
Guten Tag, Fraulein.
Fraulein.
I mean, you can't discriminate, mate.
Ah, okay, fair enough.
It's a modern era.
It is the modern era. So today's topic is why is the Nissan GTR shit?
Yes, and we're just talking about the GTR for an hour and a half.
I don't think Neil
Until-
would have had anything
until-
to say about this.
Until
so
Neil feels a disturbance in the force and decides to come over.
And rocks up here and tries and kill us. Or
No.
we might go outside and all the alphas is burnt to a crisp.
That's entirely possible.
And the Jag isn't
even if
here.
Neil doesn't come.
for an entirely different reason.
So we do actually have a different topic for today, but we'll get to that in a minute. I first have to say that we have once again, rather surprisingly, been inundated with an email.
Oh.
And this one's a little shorter than the last one. It was also written by someone completely anonymous. It says, I'm going to try and strike the tone right here.
Okay.
So just-
Okay.
Without taking offense.
It says, "Hi guys." That's what it says.
Okay.
Okay. So I love my little NC Mazda MX-5, but I'm getting so tired of the hairdresser jokes. I mean, I'm a hairstylist. Hello. So
there's a difference.
There is a big difference.
Okay.
So I really want to get something a bit more butch and manly. But I really love the way my Mazda drives. So what can I get for around 300 grand to fill that role? Toodles.
Right.
First of all, I would suggest maybe going on a short writing course and maybe not sign off your emails with toodles.
Put brakes on the toodles. That's maybe a good
Brakes
way
on the
to
toodles
see more butch.
Brakes on
and
the toodles and a little laced high with the high.
a little, just tone down the
it down a
camp
little bit,
a little
right?
bit.
Turn down the extra. Like,
You know, leave them wondering for more. It's like a proper car. Make them wanting more, you know? But
Yeah,
turn down the extra.
Anyways, back
So,
to cars.
Strangely enough, I did for a short while, a regrettable short while, I did own an NC MX-5.
So what was your specialization? Blow drying or highlights or what was?
I was on the wash and go.
Okay. Okay.
But unlike most guys who own MX-5s, I didn't fall in love with it. I really didn't. I didn't. I mean, there were times when that car was in its element where it was, I could say this is actually quite a good little sports car that you can throw around and whatever. But for the vast majority of the time that I owned that car, I absolutely hated it. It was loud. It was uncomfortable. It had no redeeming features as an car. It really is a one-trick pony that it's very good at one thing,
But
but it is
the
shockingly
one
terrible
thing
at
is
everything
that
else.
is that it's kind of well balanced and drives well.
Yeah, but
Isn't that kind of the one thing that's important for
But
us.
all the compromises that come with it was awful.
Not worth it.
I mean,
But
even a car that is quite compromised, like your 4C, is much better because the NC MX-5, Mazda had this gram strategy that they marketed it as. And basically what it meant was they took the entire car, stripped it to bits, and if they could save X number of grams on a part, they did it. So every single part on that car was made lighter. So
which
even
means
the
less
parts,
reliable.
Yes, means less reliable, first of all. Second of all, even the parts that it technically shares with other Mazdas
Is not the same.
it's not the same now. So it's a difficult car to find parts for unless you're willing to compromise the weight saving that,
The heavy parts.
yeah, I mean, I ended up putting in heavier pulleys because the plastic pulleys seized up and they didn't work properly and they made rattly noises and whatever. So I replaced an idler pulley and the tensioner pulley on the auxiliary belt for that car with parts from a Mazda 6, which technically is a different part number, and you could feel it in your hand holding the two. They are much heavier, but they work.
But now you need this translation, sheet to figure out which parts are which parts. 'cause it's not
Yeah,
the same
you
part.
need to figure out what it is. Essentially, what I did to get parts for that car, I never went to a part shop and said, I need a pulley for an MX-5 or give them a part number or whatever. I took the pulley to the
say,
part
"Give
shop
me
and I
this
said,
pulley."
I need one of these.
Yeah.
And I refused to tell them what car it's out of.
Yeah.
I just say, I need one of these.
Yeah.
And if they asked what car it's out of and they insisted on knowing, I just said it's a Mazda. And they measured it and they said, okay, the Mazda 6 has a pulley that size. It's this part number. Here you go.
Yeah.
And it looks exactly the same. It measures up exactly the same, but it's made out of metal instead of plastic. Or it's got two bearings in it instead of one.
So we're starting off an episode without Neil speaking about how lightweight ruined something. We really aren't good at that.
But
Yeah, well, he's not yet glad, so.
the other thing that I hated about the Mazda was it's got like this cheapness to the thing.
Fantastic plastic.
If you look at it from the top, it's fantastic plastic and looks okay-ish, but you peer under the dashboard, right? There's no covers. The dashboard
why would you look under the dashboard?
Because you're looking for something to fix because it's broken. But anyway, I can't remember why I was under the dashboard of that thing, but I was under the dashboard and I realized there's no covering under the dashboard, so it's all open. And all the metal support structure that holds the dashboard in place, it's rusted to crap because it's not painted. It's bare, mild steel.
That's not ideal.
Ouch.
And it's just rusted to crap. And I thought to myself, that's just plain laziness and unnecessary cost cutting.
Yeah.
And
So
a lot
weight
of the
saving.
car,
Weight saving.
how much
Cost
weight are
cutting.
you possibly saving by not painting
I
it?
don't know, a gram is a gram,
Yeah, a gram is a gram.
But yeah, that was my major gripe with the MX-5. But back to the topic at hand, what should our man buy to replace his MX-5? I would say do what I did the first time around when I was looking for an MX-5 and I noticed that MX-5s cost roughly the same as a BMW Z4. Buy one of those because they are brilliant cars. They are as much fun to drive in the twisties.
As
they've got
much a target of hairdresser jokes.
Yeah.
jokes.
But much better engines. You can have the lovely 6-cylinder motors that BMW came out with,
That's a bit more butch than an MX-5.
and it's a much better built, much better quality product than the MX-5 is for the same money.
I must admit, I thought you were going to go completely on a different route. When I saw this email, I knew exactly what you would buy for 300 grand. That's convertible. Exactly. Any guesses, Andre? Any?
Convertible.
Is it a W123 with the roof cut off?
It's a car. It's a car that Q goes on and on and on.
What, a
and
Honda
on
S2000?
About.
You're not going to get it for that price, but I know what
Exactly.
you're talking about. A Jag
You-
XK.
No. Well, you can get them for that price.
But that's an old XK. And
Yeah.
it's not quite the same.
CVR Chimera.
Oh, God, no, you can't
No,
possibly...
not for
You
this
can
person.
never...
No,
you
I
can,
know.
Look,
I know,
I love
because-
the Chimera, but you could never
It's not a car.
advise someone to buy one.
People,
My
you should never buy it as a car.
You should never buy one of those things. It's brilliant, but you should never buy one.
I had an entire note to say Quinton's gonna suggest a Chimera, and I'm gonna tell him you gotta kill a hairdresser. Don't you want your haircut, mate?
But you know, now that you mention the Chimera, I actually just had another thought. If you shop around, and I mean you really shop around, right? For 300 grand, there's a little known something that not everyone talks about.
Mm-hmm.
It's a V8, so
Mhm.
it'll be much more butch than the MX-5.
Mhm.
If you say it's German, we might have an issue.
It's not German.
Okay.
Mustangs.
Can you get
You-
it for that price?
You
though?
will never see one advertised for that price. But
But
I
they don't
can,
really
I
sell,
can
so-
tell you, dealers struggle to move second-hand Mustangs, and there are
Struggle to
loads
move
of them.
New ones.
There are loads of them on dealer auction sites.
Okay.
And dealers online is a sort of inter-dealer marketplace where dealers try to offload stock. Tons of them on there.
You may get
Um,
lucky with about a 300k one.
If you walk into a dealership where they're advertising one for 450, 500k, and you offer them 300 grand, they will sell it to you.
It's actually not a bad car for 300 grand.
Actually,
I
that's
would
not a bad
drive-
car for 300k.
I would drive a Mustang for 300 grand.
Because what we determined in
Never
the previous
ever.
season,
What we can also say is, if you're out there and you're looking at buying a Mustang, never ever pay sticker price for it,
Yeah, no.
because
Oh, God,
that
no.
dealer is
but
desperate
remember,
to get
because
rid of that.
we determined last season the Mustang's actually not that bad.
No.
It's got a pricing problem.
Yeah.
It's bad for if you pay
Yeah.
full price for it. It's bad.
Exactly.
But, if you pay
can get
very
one-
little for
if
it,
you can get a
I mean,
Mustang for 300, 400,
I would drive one.
350k,
yeah.
yeah, that would be
blow
a
your
nice
hair
car.
back on a Sunday morning. Just take it easy.
Yeah.
Don't fall over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So I think I've kind
No,
of blown.
I actually thought that would be a good car, but I'm like, no, it's too much.
Yeah, so what I initially thought is the Abarth 1-4, but they still a bit more expensive.
No, that's just an Italian flavor of a
But it's
Japanese
better.
hairdresser car.
But it's better. And then the
We're not
obvious-
asking is it better. You're gonna have the same jokes. It's gonna be
Yeah, well, the obvious answer is also the same jokes, which would be a Boxster, but you'll get the same jokes. So I would
We're not looking for other hairstylist
No.
cars. We're looking for non-hairstylist cars.
Yes. I would think the SLK 55 AMG is a good
Non-hairstylist
No,
cars.
how is that a
You're missing
non-hairstylist
the
car?
brief, bro.
How is that a non-hairstylist
That is
car?
a hairstylist that
here's
power
the other
lifts in
thing.
his free time. That
Here's
is
the other thing.
No.
I owned an SLK 55. And I can tell you categorically, if you enjoy the way the MX-5 drives, you will hate the SLK 55 because it's like
It's
driving.
the opposite.
It's like driving in an MX-5 with a nuclear bomb under the bonnet and a dead horse nailed to the front bumper, because it is so nose heavy and just not dynamically as good as an MX-5.
It's
Yeah.
not that bad.
It's like one of these kitchen knives versus a 10-pound hammer. That's
Yeah.
Well, then I guess the only car there is left to buy, Mr. Hairdresser, is a 350Z.
Non-hairdresser.
No, you just shouldn't go for the roadster.
Yeah, just, as long as you don't go for the road. Didn't we know a guy who has one of those?
There's a guy, I know a guy with a 350Z, but he's the kind of guy that
Likes GTRs.
I don't know if it's the hair cutting type, but
No, he's not really the haircutting
Yeah.
type.
Yeah,
He's-
350Z could work.
350Z.
350Z could work.
Also doesn't quite drive like an MX-5.
It doesn't. It's
But
it's a
it
much
drives
heav-
better than
it
MX-5.
feels much heavy. Oh,
Well,
it does feel heavier.
It does feel heavy. It's definitely.
There's a weight element.
There's definitely. It's beefy. It's like it's
beefy.
really butch. It's
Might feel like a hairdresser,
Mike,
but you've gained a few pounds.
But it's so heavy and so butch. It might feel like you're overcompensating for something.
It'll keep you. It'll keep you grounded. That's for sure.
Who's that knocking on the door?
I smell fire.
There's Neil coming. But yeah, I think a 350Z could work
Yeah,
as well.
350Z.
350Z
would work.
I'd rather have a Mustang, but a 350Z
Actually, it's
could work.
370Z for 300k, right?
Yeah, for 300K.
I think it is 370. I think it's 370.
But since my SLK and everything is such a bad option, what was your options, Mr. Beard Trimmer?
Mrs. Beard Trimmer.
It was actually a Mustang, but I thought it was going to be too much. So I actually was thinking 370Z.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't
And
argue with that.
Because you
Fine.
like the Japanese kind of thing. You like the
Yeah.
Japanese kind of thing. That's cool. Yeah.
My
The
car is
other-
also a good option, but it's.
You
I
know
don't
what?
think a hairdresser is going to drive my car.
You know what?
You
I've
just
got
came
a-
up with the solution.
I've got a better option. I've got the perfect option. Okay. So,
Buy a RAV with a cone filter and cut the roof off.
well, you could do that if you were smart. But what you can buy is you can buy an Alpha.
Really, an Alpha? You're suggesting an Alpha?
No, wait.
I mean, you've never suggested
Wait,
Alphas
this one is
before.
different. This one doesn't really have an Alpha engine. It's you can buy an Alpha Brera.
I was thinking the same thing, but I couldn't see one for under 300k.
No, you'll find them. You buy an Alpha Brera. Remember, he's not a hairdresser. He's a hair stylist. What's more
Ooh.
stylish than
a
Alpha Brera?
But he
There's
also-
nothing hairdressery about a
The
Brera.
thing is, he does love the way that his MX-5 drives, and the
That's
Brera is
true. We'll
not
brush
really
over
gonna
that for a
drive.
bit. The 2.2.
Are we brushing?
Yeah, we'll brush over there for a bit.
over it.
But a 2.2 would actually be a better car then.
Yeah.
Because it's not that fast. Not that MX-5
Not
is
as
fast,
heavy metal.
but it's not as heavy. So
Mm.
it'll be okay. I think.
Yeah, that was
That could
also
work.
when I started thinking about it. It was my first
Possibly not a bad option.
It doesn't send the message that it sends if you drive one of those is stylish, like proper stylish. It's
The,
not
the
like
message you send.
it doesn't have a feminine stylishness
But
about it.
he might miss being able to put the roof down.
Then you can get a Spider.
But you're not
Oh,
going to get a
so-
Spider for 300k.
The 2.2 you'll get maybe.
They're about 320. They're about
For a
320
2.2
around,
Spider?
So yeah, there's two for
Well,
there's
320,
three,
300,
two or
same
three,
thing.
Yeah, so you're gonna
So
be
it's
in that
possible.
ballpark. Yeah.
So, Mr. Hairstylist,
There we go.
Connor, if you're listening, you can buy. Sorry, not Connor. Anonymous hairstylist. You can buy either a Mustang, an Alfa Brera, possibly an Alfa Spider,
370Z
a
or
370Z,
350.
or a 350Z. You've got some options out there.
Yeah,
I
you've
think
got
you're
quite a
actually
few
well
options,
catered for. If you want to get rid of your MX-5, and I'm not saying you should, but you probably should.
Just leave the pop, just leave the pops and bangs tune in the MX-5. Like don't take
Yeah.
it to the Alpha, please. That went
So, moving swiftly on, guys. Today we're going to be chatting about computer games.
yes, and it's something actually that continues their MX-5 themes
Yeah.
because most people start driving with their MX-5s.
Guys, just a quick reminder that you have got a little bit of time left to get your tickets for Samola, the Samola Hill Climb in Neisner, obviously. This year we are going up. We are going to be spending some time there. We have got press accreditation again, so Carbs and Coffee will be covering the event in all its glory. It is probably one of my favorite events on the motorsport calendar just because of the absolute vibe that completely takes over the town. I mean, the whole town just basically becomes motorsport mad for a whole weekend. It's awesome. If you haven't been there, if you haven't experienced it, you have to go. It is fantastic fun. You can come and meet us, hang out with us, have some fun. It's a really, really good way to spend a weekend, quite frankly. Today's episode is sponsored by the fantastic people at Harper Sports Cars. No strangers to Samola, by the way. The Harper Sports Car team have, on more than one occasion, jumped into their sports cars, the Harper Type 5 or Harper Type 6, driven the race car all the way from Cape Town to Neisner, raced it up the hill competitively, and then drive it back again. That's the beauty of the Harper Sports Car concept. You can drive it to the track, you can race it, and then you can drive it back home again. Something that Craig has proven over and over again by taking his car all over the country. and sometimes even out of the country, driving it to events, racing it, and then driving it back home again. It is probably the highest performance level you can have in a car at the price point. You can get it as a turnkey car from the factory. You can get it in kit form and build it yourself as a fun project that takes you 12 years and still isn't finished. But that's my fault, not the car's, quite frankly. I'm going to go sit in the corner, cry for a little bit about one day finishing my Harper, because they really are fantastic to drive. You guys can carry on and just listen to the show.
That's true. Let's just qualify, guys.
I actually started computer games with a Ferrari Testarossa.
I started it with the McLaren MP4.
No, because the first
F1 race.
The first racing games that I played was stuff like Outrun, where you drive the Ferrari Testarossa.
That is true. Yeah. That's true.
And then after that, I started playing Outrun in the arcades, in the games arcades.
Yes.
There was a
Sega Rally.
Yeah, and there was a games arcade in Amanzimtoti. And whenever we went on holiday to our family, we had a flat in Amanzimtoti that we used to go to. And whenever we went there, we sort of knew in the back of our minds there was going to be one day of the holiday where it's going to be raining or it's going to be miserable weather. We're not going to go to the beach or swimming or do anything fun. So we'll go to Funland, which was this games arcade just down the road from us.
Yeah.
And I didn't play anything but racing
games. Yeah.
I'd be on Outrun. I'd be on Sega Rally. There was some Drive Hard, which was the first driving game that had gears and a clutch and everything.
I'm trying to think what the other one was.
Well, for you, it must have been like a million
Ridge
years
Racer.
ago. Yeah, Ridge Racer.
That was pretty cool. That had the best sim, I think. And then you got the in the 90s, you got the Ferrari 355.
Yes, the
We had to
355 challenge.
each other with the shifters, with the F1 shifters.
355 challenge. That was a good one.
So I think
we had that when I was at university in the UK, in the student union bar on campus. We had the 355 challenge machines.
Love it.
I held the records.
There we go.
Quite a few of the tracks.
There we
I
go.
would honestly love to one day have a man cave with a few of those machines.
yes.
And that would
those
literally be the
old arcade
ultimate.
machine.
I would be able
But-
to die happy then.
Yeah.
Having said that, if you go back and play those games now, and the physics,
It's
the
very
graphics,
different.
Yeah, no, it's not great.
compared to what we've got today, because back in the day, my dad used to look at me and go, "You're a bit old to play computer games, aren't you?" But with a less sort of East End accent.
Was he more Brummy?
No, he was more Afrikaans.
Okay.
But back in those days, they were games, really.
Yeah.
And since then, the driving game genre has split. So you've still got your arcade style games
Of
like
course.
your
Your
Need for Speeds
and stuff like that,
and stuff like that. But now we've got the sim races, which is the kind of stuff that I suppose we probably enjoy more. And it has to be said that sim racing has become scarily accurate.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So
I actually just wanted to, like you said now, we've got the game. When you open now, what I just wanted to say is just to clarify, we'll talk about games, but we're also talking about simulation. We're going to talk about racing sims.
Yeah.
And I mean, the two spectrums that you have, even in the 90s, in the 2000s, you had F1 professional Formula One sims.
Yeah.
So I've driven the Toro Rosso sim at Imola,
Okay.
the actual Toro Rosso sim that they used. So it's kind of older tech and what have you, but it still gives you a pretty decent view. I've
crazy,
driven some Ferrari sims, like the proper.
So I have to ask you then, is a Formula One car as hard to drive as I like to imagine it is?
Well, I mean, on the simulator, it is tricky. It's tricky. You gotta keep your wits about you.
'Cause
It's not just jump
thing-
in and go.
The thing with a Formula One car is, like, my brain tells me that in my car, I can go around this corner at 60 k's an hour or 80 k's an hour if I'm pushing it. in a Formula One car, you can't go around this corner at 80 k's an hour because
the
it won't
aero won't
work.
work.
slow,
yeah.
yeah.
It has
not
to
gonna
be
turn.
at 180 k's an hour. And do you sort of get that feel when you're driving it that you have to go faster to make it work?
I think, I mean, I only drove the sim for a bit. I mean, it's not like, I didn't do like 100 laps
Yeah.
on it or anything.
You stalled it on your first drive.
Yeah,
didn't you?
exactly. But it's what becomes apparent very quickly that it's super twitchy. Now, this is after I've been doing some competitive sim racing for quite a while. So when I started sim racing, I was more useless than when I started karting. Because you used to arcade, you're used to games and arcades and things that you think are simulators, but they're not.
You really need to
So-
change your mind state.
Yeah.
Are you trying to tell me that the drift mode in Need for Speed is not realistic?
Outrun was that.
Outrun was totally realistic.
Of course.
Ding, ding, ding.
Because
and you get
everyone
those
knows
time.
when you drive a convertible Testarossa, there is going to be a hot blonde sitting next to you in
Yes.
it.
That is true.
That's
It's
I
a
mean, that's
fact.
just how it works.
That is true.
It's a fact.
The coolest of those games was Sega
We are
Rally.
so getting cancelled after this.
Sega
At
Rally.
least my wife is blonde.
Sega Rally was actually good fun. Sega Rally, you
Yeah,
could kind
Sega
of throw
Rally
the
was
car
quite
around,
cool.
you could do your thing. But it's kind of so where we started. I think we must just visit where we started, what the first games and stuff that we did, and then you've got kind of your F1 sims that's been around. They obviously just getting better and better.
Yeah.
But it's the gap has closed quite a lot. I think that's the main takeaway is.
I mean, I think the first real sim game that was quite publicly available was probably Richard Burns. I don't know if you guys...
And remember
It's
that.
the most simulated game,
You reckon?
I think, from that era.
It was
'Cause
that was
what-
when
what was
GTR
that?
and those things were around. GTR,
I
that
think it
was
before
Yeah, I
that,
mean,
wasn't it?
But GTR, not a lot of people knew about because everyone was
Yeah.
playing Need for Speed.
yeah.
So that's the thing. At that
So
point, it
when
was,
I discovered GTR, I was like,
That was amazing.
oh wow, I didn't know that a computer could do this
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
suddenly this felt like driving.
And R Factor also started.
An R factor,
Factor,
yeah.
And iRacing was actually around. iRacing
iRacing was around, but no
for
one knew about
years,
it.
But it was very niche. It was very and you also had to
And
you
because
know-
of the payment model that iRacing has always had, it was considered to
When
be
I was
very expensive.
when I was a kid or a student, I could just never, would
Yeah.
never pay for anything
Yeah.
like that. So you'd pirate your game somewhere else.
Exactly. You used to pirate your copy of Need for Speed from your mate.
Yeah, done it from a torrent or something.
Yeah.
In Mexico, I mean, I
In
heard
Mexico.
people do
Of
this.
course,
this
yeah.
kind
El
of thing.
Torrento.
I heard people do this kind of thing. I don't know.
But I think we've got quite a good spectrum of different sim setups. I want to almost say because I've got a very
I was just about to say, today, if you went to your house right now and fired up your sim, what would you be running?
What's your kit? What do you have, and what do you?
So I've got the Logitech G920. Nothing
Okay.
funny or so. I think
The staple
that's
of the
probably
sim racer.
yeah. That's probably what everyone buys when they start off. I've got the extra H pattern gearbox. I replaced the brake pedal spring with a progressive spring.
Nice.
So
feel?
just to get a bit of feel on the brake pedal, because that's your pedals is very important for sim, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah,
it's
the most
really,
important
yeah.
thing. Braking is the most important.
And then I do like the odd occasional drifting, so I've got a flight joystick that I use as a hydraulic handbrake, either for rally or drifting.
Hey,
then.
it's not stupid if it works, man.
So
No, it
yeah,
works.
so I've got the very basic setup with cheap that Type R seats that you can buy at like any auto store. Cheap Type R seats on a frame that I built myself with someone.
Nice. Well
So
done.
very, very like the frame cost me like $300 to build. The seat I got from Stuart White. Thank you, Stewie.
Our
if you're
famous
listening to it,
international
famous
GT3 racer.
international
What
GT3
software are
racer.
you running?
And my favorite sim to play still to date is the Assetto Corsa, the normal Assetto Corsa. I really just love the variety of things you can do in Assetto
So
Corsa.
Assetto
and it's
Corsa is
still-
very moddable.
Yeah.
It's very moddable, and I know some might say it's not the best simulator or whatever, but yes, the base game is not the best simulator
the thing is-
compared to newer stuff out there now. But with the mods that there is, it's crazy how realistic tire compounds is in it now, and like your rain effects, how the rain effects is in it now, etc. It's just an all around, if I want to putter around, do stuff on myself, or even do a little bit of league racing, it's my favorite thing to just start up with. It's probably not the most competitive thing, but racing doesn't always have to be the most competitive.
As long as you have fun, man. As long as you enjoy it, that's
and
awesome.
you need to learn. It essentially, a simulator teaches you a track, right?
Yeah.
I remember. I can't remember who it was. If it was Robbie Teams that races with you.
Yeah, Robbie races with me.
That before either he showed someone or before he started racing. I remember because I raced a lot with him and Willem Botha and those guys a lot when I started out with sim racing. And I remember them telling me when they tried to either convince someone else to start sim racing or when someone tried to convince them, they showed them it was the Nürburgring, and they said, stop anywhere on the track there that you want and look at the graffiti on the ground. And then when you get the opportunity, because he had the opportunity to go on the ring in real life, look and see if you can find that same spot on the track. And lo and behold,
matches.
that exact same thing. And it's stupid, right? It's graffiti.
No, but it shows you how accurate
these things are. I mean, they 3D scanned. They scanned with, all these type of stuff. So I'm not saying you are driving God when you're in a simulator, but the essence of a track, it teaches you everything you need to know about that track. You can go and drive Kyle Army right now on the sim, and you will be able to, if you're driving the same car, same everything, you will be able to use the same braking points, use the same turning points. It's a brilliant tool. It's really a brilliant tool. Other than being very fun, it's a brilliant tool.
Obviously limitations to that, because obviously sims don't always translate 100% to real life, first of all.
No, of course, because you don't have the G-forces.
When you are physically sitting in the car, there's the G-forces that you mentioned, but there's also...
There's the danger and the nerves.
There's the danger and the nerves.
And the testicular fortitude.
Your testicular fortitude, when there is zero consequence, is going to be greatly bigger than if you know you could potentially bin it and die.
Yeah.
So I run a pretty similar setup. I've got an older wheel. I've got the Logitech G29, also with the
Same thing.
Same thing.
It's the same thing. The one is Xbox and the other one's PlayStation, but it's the same wheel.
It's just got different buttons on it. Also with the H shifter. My pedals are still stock standard, which is frustrating because the brakes have zero feel to them. It does make it very difficult to judge your braking.
And they've got that little block at the bottom where it just feels like it hits a wall. It's just not progressive. It just goes.
So fairly basic setup. I've got a play seat, some frame, which is a little bit wobbly. So I've got plans to weld some extra tube onto it and stiffen the whole thing up a little bit. I used to run a 3-screen setup, but then I managed to get myself a cheap secondhand VR headset, which I find helps a hell of a lot, because when I was running 3 screens, having that extra field of vision not only enhances your perception of speed, but it makes it much more easier to place other cars on the track. So when you're overtaking someone, you can tell whether they're still next to you before you turn in. And that peripheral vision is quite important when you're driving. The VR takes that a step further in the sense that I can now turn my head,
look over your shoulder,
look over my shoulder. I've literally got 360-degree view if I want to. Although it is sometimes a little bit difficult to just turn your head and look behind you in the middle of a race, but you can turn to the side. You can focus on the apex that you're turning towards, and it does
really help.
It helps not only with the driving, but with the immersive feel of it.
You can't beat it for immersion. I mean, you are.
Yeah,
it's like you are in a car.
It's like you're
Exactly.
in there. And quite often when I'm racing and I'm really getting into it, especially if I'm doing it late at night and I'm actually a little bit tired, you will literally, if you hit a wall or something goes wrong or someone hits you from behind or something, you kind of shit yourself because you're like, "Whoa, what just happened?" And it's like, "Whoa!" So
I nearly died.
You get so into it that it becomes like a real thing.
Yeah.
I also run Assetto Corsa. Mine has quite a lot of modded cars and tracks on it. And I will say that the basic physics engine in Assetto Corsa I find to be quite good. Their tire modeling is pretty damn good. The track modeling is pretty damn good. And the official cars are very good and very accurately done on it. Some of the modded cars are obviously not necessarily real to life, but they can still be fun to drive because they're still being processed by the same physics model. So even though the modified Honda S2000 that I've downloaded and run on my sim isn't necessarily like a real Honda S2000, it's still a fun car to drive in the sim because it still uses the same physics engine and it's still fun.
But you also get mod packs that has better physics feelings on the set
than some of the
proper
actually improving on
research, actually improving on it. Yeah.
Improved on it.
Okay.
But the other thing that I really love about Assetto Corsa is I've got a little mod that I downloaded. I can't remember what it's called, Car Tuner or something
yes,
like
where
that.
you can tune your own cars in a
Not just tune it, but you can do engine swaps. So one of my favorite, most fun cars to drive on the game is a Toyota 86 that I did an engine swap with an RB26 from a Nissan Skyline.
Nice.
It is a
Fruit
drift
salad.
machine. I love that car. It is so much fun. It sounds incredible. It's just a great thing.
Yeah.
And I like that sort of modability and playability with Assetto Corsa, but obviously you have to bear in mind that it's not necessarily 100% realistic because obviously the Toyota 86 doesn't come with an RB26.
It could come.
It could,
It
but
could.
yeah,
It would fit.
that's basically my setup now. I run the cheap VR setup. I run cheap wheel, cheap pedals.
But it's still a hoot. And it still gives you the feedback.
It's still a hell of a lot of fun.
That's an entry level to a decent wheel that you can race with if you wanted to. You get older stuff or cheaper stuff that's just not worth it. You may as well ride with a keyboard.
You at least need proper force feedback.
That's
right?
where it started,
So
where you get some force feedback.
We know, for example, that your wife listens to this podcast, so we can reassure her that you are running a very cheap, second-hand setup that came from the back of a truck somewhere.
It didn't come from America at all.
So,
Exactly.
so why don't you run us through your little entry-level rig?
Your toy.
My toy. So I started with sim racing. I bought for 300 Rand many years ago, like in 2001. I bought like a 300 Rand Genius wheel with no force feedback.
Yeah.
That you could
Just
play.
got the centering
I think
spring.
it was like Porsche Need for Speed or something. You could play with this,
Yes,
and not much else.
It had all of 30 degrees of movement.
Yeah.
left and right,
Yeah. And the pedals were like little switches.
Yeah.
And then I bought also. This was used. I bought it on Gumtree, and I also bought used. And a few years later, in about 2010, roughly there, what I bought was they call it a Momo.
I had one of those.
Logitech Momo, right?
Yes.
So it's
And
similar.
it had the sequential
The little
shifter.
sequential shifter is on the
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, I
It
had
looked
one of
amazing.
those.
It's this nice rubber grip, like a
Yeah.
small Momo wheel. Those things go for big money now because they're
Those
worth
are
a bit of
still
money.
brilliant.
And I gave mine away for
I
next
gave
to
mine
nothing.
to my little brother, but that's fine.
Because mine had the old joystick port, the one that looks like a
serial
serial port.
Yeah.
So I had
Yeah,
one
yeah.
of those, and obviously my new computer didn't have one of those, so I
Yeah,
just
just like
chuck it away.
You could get it converted to it, but the thing is, they only have like 270 degrees of.
Yes.
So they are. If you're driving like a Formula car, it can be okay, but if you drive a saloon car, it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
The the mod on the. I had a laptop that I played it on, and then I had it only had the 2 pedals. So what I did was, this is a hack. Is you can even try it with your 920 and stuff. You take a squash ball, and you just put it behind the brake.
Okay, that's actually quite smart.
It actually worked okay for that one.
Yeah.
It still wasn't great, but it was better than nothing than what it had.
I should try that.
Yeah.
So I had that for a few years.
Idea.
And then I started in COVID times. I started in 2020. There was a big drive, people to...
A few hours later.
A steering wheel.
Yeah.
So I bought a Thrustmaster. The Thrustmaster and Logitech are kind of the more the entry-level kind of wheels.
It's the VW and Toyota of the world.
Yeah, so I was the Thrustmaster. I got the strongest Thrustmaster that's a belt-driven wheel. So your wheels are gear-driven.
Yeah.
So there's a bit notchy.
Several more hours later.
And then mine was belt-driven, so it's also got gears, but it's got a belt, so it's a little bit smoother.
Yeah.
But they're actually quite strong. It's like a 6 Newton meters wheel, I think.
Yeah,
I think the Logitech is a 2 Newton meters or something.
It's not that strong.
But it was nice. So I got that with a nice Ferrari. It's actually for sale, by the way. So anyway, good. It's like a budgie going cheap. So it's got a nice Alcantara Ferrari 488 steering wheel, and then I bought a rig, like an entry level kind of steel rig, and I put all these things. I got Thrustmaster pedals as well, 3 pedals, metal pedals. Also didn't have springs and stuff in there, so it was better than the basic stuff, but it was not great. And then I got the screen I had was like a 24-inch screen or something. And then I started getting a bit more serious about it. So I started racing I started doing iRacing. Now iRacing is, if you want to do online racing, iRacing is kind of where you want to be.
Yeah.
So that's where Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, that's where they also race.
It's not for just enjoying yourself. That's for serious leagues.
You can enjoy yourself, but if you want to race
but...
in leagues, then you gotta be on it. And whatever your skill level is, there is a place for you to race.
Yeah.
You can start racing tomorrow. You can pay your fees. You pay an annual fee for it, and then you have to buy the tracks, and you get some free tracks and cars, but most of the stuff you have to buy.
So that's the most annoying part of iRacing.
And the Mazda MX-5, the Miata, is kind of where everybody starts. In the rookie class, that's the car you get to drive. And then what you do is you go on to, with thousands of other people, onto servers. And then what happens is you kind of, depending on the practice where you fall in, they'll chuck you with people with similar lap times than what you have. So they talk about the split. So the top split is the fastest people in the world, and then you kind of go down like that. And then when it gets to qualifying and race, then you are thrown together with people with similar pace. So any time of the day,
so there's got to be
world,
somewhere in the world. There's got to be like a support group for people who fall into a deep depression because they're in the bottom split all the time.
You don't know which split you're in. No. You don't know which split you're in. You just know that you're in a split.
Yeah.
If you're in a top split, I think you know it because you'll see Formula One drivers in there with you.
I have not seen any Formula One drivers.
So yeah, I've been as, I think I've seen the Van der Lindes somewhere where I've been, but I haven't seen any Formula One drivers there. But they're actually very good. The Van der Lindes are super good. I just happened to, by chance, end up there.
Yeah.
But they're super good. So that's kind of how that works. I started doing iRacing because I didn't race the public stuff. I started racing with a league. So the sports and GT guys at Killarney, they started a league, sports in Western Province Sports and GT. Robbie Tings joined in. There's a whole bunch of guys. Now, what's funny about it is you mentioned earlier, the same thing with me. So your dad would come like, oh, aren't you a bit too old to play games? What have you? So we now, the Masters League, so I took a few years off. Last year I took off. Now I'm back in the Masters League this year. And I think we're almost 30 people on the grid now. And we've actually got inside the Masters class. You have to be older than 40 to be in the Masters. So no one racing in that on this whole season, the whole series, is younger than 40. And then there's a Grandmasters class for the over 60s, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very active class.
Yeah.
It's a very active class inside the class.
Yeah.
So there's guys racing. The oldest guy is Well, Cyril Ginsberg, I think he's 75 now. He races with us on occasion. In real life, until recently, he raced his Porsche Carrera at Killarney in Sports and GT. So some of these guys have raced Porsche turbos, like Le Mans prototypes. We've got a Formula One test driver that is every now and then. He used to be in the Jag team. So we've got Mr. Schechter, the Schechter brother, the younger Schechter brother that was the Jag test driver in 2007, 2006 in the UK. I can't remember his name now. Anyway.
So basically, this is just an episode that we set up so Andre can name drop.
Yeah, but you know,
I'm just trying to say it's serious people.
But you know what he's avoiding is telling
us
what is currently running.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a few iterations that I went through. Currently, I have an aluminium profile rig that's a Simcade built for me. It's got proper aluminium stuff, completely adjustable. It's on wheels, and I've got a Sparco wraparound seat.
Carbon back seat.
No. This is a normal one, and it's not a real Sparco. It's a Spalco, but it looks exactly like a
Sparco from Wish.
Exactly, it looks exactly like a Sparco. It's solid and everything. But, I'm not going to put it in a GT3 car if I go racing on track. So it's just, it looks the part. So it wasn't budgie cheap, but it does its deal. A real seat like that would be like 20 grand or something. So it was not close to that.
Or it's about a quarter of the price.
I won't go into specifics, but anyway. So one of the things that's made the biggest change in my racing was I bought a set of pedals imported it from the Netherlands, Usingfeld. Yeah. So Usingfeld, I think they're the official suppliers for Williams, and I'm not sure about Mercedes for their some setup. Mm-hmm. So I've got a set of Usingfeld Sprints. So the difference between the Usingfeld pedals, and it's all metal construction and everything, the difference between them and, say, your normal Thrustmaster pedals, whatever, is that it doesn't have a potentiometer. So yours is like a switch.
Yeah.
The further you put your foot, the more it registers, like turning a knob. So this has got load cells. Yeah. So it's about the pressure that you apply to each of the pedals to give you a feel for it, especially for the brake. That's important. And you can adjust that to, I think, about 70 odd kilograms of pressure. So you can decide how strong you want it to be. I think if I tried
that on my rig, it would just
rig would
bend.
break.
So my previous rig, I had a steel rig, and I actually broke the rig because you put pressure on pedals and it's
race too hard, bro.
Yeah.
It just
so this one is now solid. And then I upgraded that Thrustmaster wheel recently. I went to the States, so I upgraded it to a semi-cube. I've got a semi-cube Sport at 70 Newton meters wheel, which is quite strong.
It can basically break your arm.
Yes, you get
more torque than a Honda.
Exactly. But the same as the S2000.
Hey.
So at least a VTEC 1600. But yeah, so I mean, it's pretty. It's kind of scary, the force feedback that thing has. So it's actually, you try and keep your thumbs out of the wheel. Because if you run into a wall at 300 k's an hour and the thing flicks, it will break your thumbs. So you have to be kind of awake. To give you an idea, a GT3 car that you race right now.
I don't know. I quite enjoy a realistic simulator, but I don't want it to simulate injuries when I crash my car.
Well,
I mean,
then you got to stay on the black stuff. So a GT3 car, the torque. Look, a GT3 car has power steering, but the actual torque of a GT3 race car is about
going into a corner.
30 Newton meters is what you get to with it. So this one is 17, so it can fully simulate the GT3 car. The Formula cars, mine is only 17. You get some of these things that are 30 Newton meters that you can get through That is if you want to simulate like a Formula One car or whatever. I don't have those kind of Gs, and I also don't have those kind of arms, so it works out nicely.
Yeah.
And then the wheel, I've got it's a Gomez wheel. It's like this boutique place in Texas that builds wheels. It's a full aluminium wheel with silicone grips, and it's got a whole lot of knobs and things on it, and it's got carbon fiber shifters at the back. Feels much better than any race car that I've driven the wheel. So that's my setup. I've got a big metal plate that it all bolts into. Because the thing is, you don't want any flex.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Because there's all these forces, you don't want to like flexing around. And then my screens, I've got 3. I've got Dell 144 hertz screens. I've got 3 27-inch curved screens that kind of wrap around. So I've got 170 odd degrees of view. So that's awesome. That made a huge difference. Going to 3 screens made a big difference for me. And the pedals made a huge difference. To be very honest, the wheel, yes, this is a bit stronger. You can feel a bit more. But my previous wheel at 6 Newton meters, even though it wasn't direct drive,
the same feeling.
I'm not much faster with this than I was with the other one. And, it's just you've got a bit more immersion now.
Yeah, in actual fact, you're maybe slow because you're getting all the how can I say, you're getting all the feedback on the wheel. That
You can change it. You can drop it down and stuff. So if you get used to it, you should be a little bit more consistent and stuff. But the old one with the right software was really not bad.
Yeah. But I mean, just to put in perspective how crazy that setup is that you have is, from what I understand, the wheel, so the wheel rim, the actual wheel, steering wheel itself that you have in these modern GT3 cars can clip in there.
Yes.
They literally can clip in there and you can use it as a actual GT3
my actual wheel,
wheel.
I can plug into, it's got a quick release, like you've got on the race cars. I can actually, there's people actually that built the race cars, like a GT4 BMW or whatever, and they use the Gomez wheel and just put it on there. The immersion and the feel of it is...
So basically, if you forget your wheel on the sim at home and you go to the track to drive your car, you're kind of buggered.
Exactly. Got your wife to bring your wheel.
Damn it.
So now I'm happy where I am now with all of that.
But you also pretty much race exclusively on iRacing now. You don't really
100%.
use Assetto
Look,
anymore.
Assetto I use for fun. Assetto, what I do enjoy with Assetto is Assetto's got the local tracks.
Yes.
So there's mods. So you can race on Killarney, East London, whatever.
But I must also admit that the
quality of them
the quality of the Killarney mod. Look, the graphics is much of a muchness.
The latest one isn't too bad.
The Killarney has been improved a lot, eh?
No,
so the same guy that did Kyalami did Killarney now.
My sim
released
hasn't updated in months. I haven't turned that PC on in months.
Okay.
So.
But where I use it is where I really use that is when whenever I travel somewhere, I try and go drive a car on track somewhere.
Yes.
So what I did was, I drove a Ferrari 458 at Mugello. Now I want to simulate that. You want to see where the braking points are. You just want to get a view of the track, like what's going on.
You don't want to get there and the instructor thinks,
and get a surprise.
This idiot?
What's going left? Where's going right? Exactly.
Yeah, you want
what
him
is
to
this
think.
a guy doing?
You want him to think you're driving God, because if you do that, they might just sign you
Maybe
as
they'll
a
sign me
factory
up,
driver. So
like Vettel was on his way out. Maybe that just hit me in there.
exactly.
But so I mean, you do a few laps, so you get an idea with a Ferrari 458. What kind of speeds would you be doing? Where would you be braking, etc. Now, Assetto isn't like the most realistic when it comes to that, but it gives you an idea. At Killarney, so I also take my road car.
Yeah.
When I do a track day at Killarney, I do a few laps. I make it the same color as my road car. I make the wheels black. I make the car black. And then I do some laps. And you can actually put like semi-slicks or put normal wheels on.
All that stuff.
So I've actually, and I'm within like 0.2 of a second. My Assetto Corsa lap with what my real life lap is at similar tires.
And that's what makes the sim racing so strong. It's really at that point where you don't have to, even as an expensive Formula One team, can you just imagine the crazy money they would have to spend to get their drivers on the track for as many hours as they've had on the sim?
They used to do that.
I know they used to do that.
No, what I'm saying is they used to spend millions and millions and millions of euros to have Michael Schumacher and the guys drive a gazillion laps every day. And now they're not allowed to do it.
Exactly.
Because of the money as well.
And now they can do it on a sim. And with a sim that's not that far off what you can buy.
Yeah.
You need to spend a shit ton of money, but you can basically buy exactly what the Formula One teams are running.
I'm gonna say something that I kind of want to know if you guys agree with me on this one. So I've obviously driven Killarney quite a lot, and I've driven Killarney on the sim quite a lot. I find it easier to drive in real life than I do on the sim.
It's your kit will help.
Yeah, I think my kit is obviously.
If you can feel where you're braking, it would help.
Well, that's the thing with my kit, for example. I can't feel where I'm actually hitting the brakes. I can't tell whether I'm at the limit of adhesion when I'm under braking. I also find it quite difficult sometimes, depending on what car I'm driving in the sim. It's difficult to feel when it's on the edge of letting go because you don't feel the G-forces. You can't feel when the car's going sideways until, you see the screen suddenly moving in a different direction, which is, by that point, it's actually too late.
Yeah.
You can't drive a car on the limit as easily in the sim as you can in real life, where you can actually feel what the tires are really doing.
So funny enough for me, it was at the start the other way around, because I think you guys had more real life experience.
Well, we've done a whole lot of laps around the track before we ever drove a sim for the first time.
Exactly, where I've had a lot more experience on a sim before I drove a track for the very first time. So for me, it translated a lot easier because a sim
so when
was
you
what
smashed
I was
through the
used
tire wall, the reset button didn't work.
Exactly. So that's something that was in the back of my mind is if I go off here now, I'm not just driving on again. I'm actually making shit. Where when I started with the sim, it was kind of like you first went over your limits and then you turned it down. You know
Exactly.
So for me, it was quite a bit different. And I couldn't understand because my dad's a good driver, in my opinion. But I put him on the sim and he looked like he's never driven anything in his life.
But it's foreign. It takes a while to... So I've... One of the coolest... I'm going to do a bit of name dropping here. But one of the coolest, just a fair warning.
I'm just going to edit it out.
Just a fair warning to
I'm going to cut
everyone.
it out and just put in there one of the coolest things I ever did was when Pete Pompies.
So in 2021, so I was racing in the Masters Series, and then we had a special guest join us for one of the rounds. We were racing the Corvette CR6 or something like. It's like a GT3 GTE type of car, big V8 Corvette. Proper sports car, proper like race car that we raced at Road Atlanta, Road America in the US on iRacing. I love that track. I've had some front row qualies there and stuff. Love that track. And then this week we had Superman, Sarel van der Merwe join us for that week.
Nice.
So he drove on. Drove on Janelle de Villiers' rig, I think. So they got him, kind of showed him around, or a friend of ours that did the rigs. So kind of showed him around, and he practiced a bit during the week, and he kind of got a feel for it. And it was interesting. I also talked to him afterwards. So I probably had about 3-4 laps that I was dicing with him, right? Because I've experienced at that point. I've got a year of serious sim racing behind me. My track racing is very limited compared to his, obviously. I have a bit of sim racing experience, and I've driven on the track in the car and stuff. He is coming into this new, right? So he doesn't know.
It's foreign for
right?
him.
Well, never mind, he was older than 70 already. Like the first time. But we had a very good dice. But you could see it translate. You could see he was still kind of getting used to it. But you could see it's the racing lines and stuff.
I mean, if you watch Sarel drive on track as well, he's very well known for driving the car in that sort of fluid state where it's not quite drifting, but it's like
he's right on the edge.
It's not really really gripping either.
So you must remember,
and that is probably the thing that's most difficult to do on the sim.
Exactly. So for him, it's you can't feel the arse going. You can feel it on the steering wheel a little bit. Actually, he was on a motion sim, so you could feel a little bit.
Okay, so you can.
So there are guys with motion sims in our league as well. We've got some. My setup is mid to lower setup in the league that I'm in.
Yeah,
I think my setup doesn't qualify.
No, me and you are not invited to.
There are guys. We've had guys in the league with rigs that were close to R1 million.
Jesus.
before.
So, top tip: if you want to save some money, go race real cars because sims are way too expensive.
No, and you'll spend that on tires in 2 years. But what was so cool is, so obviously for him, he can't feel the car drifting. He doesn't have of all the sensors that he's used to, that he's been doing for 60 years. He's had all those sensors. Where I've gotten used to kind of deal with what I have. But we had a good dice. But you could see he was getting better and better. And what was funny about it, the funny part was, he has won at that track in IMSA.
Yeah.
He's raced a similar car in real life, and he's won a race in the championship there.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, he knows a bit of thing or two about going around that track.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So we were at Road Atlanta. Johan Ferry, he won races there. Driving single seaters and stuff there.
Yes.
And we were racing. So it's so
Single
weird
seaters there,
racing against these guys. And they've actually like won races
really
on the same track.
There,
So, why didn't you suggest, you know all these people, you're name dropping all the time. Why didn't you bring any of them to this episode to come and be a guest on the show?
Because I'm like a medium background, and I haven't been there for quite a while. I've been out of it, so I'm getting back into it. But there's so much talent there. Our friend Willem Botha, that you know. So Willem is the crew chief for Gazoo Racing.
Gazoo Racing, yeah.
So he's the guy that makes sure that proudly South Africa we keep the flag flying. But that guy can drive on a sim, which means that he can drive. That's kind of the point. Is if you are very quick and good on a sim and consistent,
and he's good with setups.
Exactly. So he
does
all
great
the setups.
Yeah.
I mean, a sim essentially is simulation.
It simulates.
So if you're good on a sim, you will translate to being good on the track.
Yeah.
In theory, if you have that sort of fear switch in your head that you can turn
still
off.
need to put the physical part into it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is obviously fitness. I can take a Formula 4, like a Formula 1 car around in iRacing. We've actually had races with a Formula 1 car, and you have to be like the Merc of like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
You got to be awake. You got to really be your reflex and stuff needs to be quick. But I wouldn't be able to do one lap in real life because my neck would just let go. The G-forces are off the charts.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's the movie they made now, the well-known story about Gran Turismo, where Gran Turismo is a bit more like the big sim races are kind of more, look down on that's more a simcade kind of thing.
But it is more simcade.
It is, but I mean, it shows that, that guy, that the first guy that was famous for, becoming a GT3 racer. Yeah. And there's many other guys. There's a guy.
Skills translate.
There's a guy in NASCAR now.
Yeah.
I can't remember the guy's name. He won the Daytona 500, I think. He comes from sim racing.
Yeah.
But it's very easy to simulate a left turn.
That's true. You need some testicular fortitude to go 200 miles an hour.
You touched on something that I just want to mention as well before we finish. The cost of sim racing. Yes, you can go and spend 100 grand, $1 million rand on a sim racing rig.
Yeah.
But even stuff like what Nico and I have got, you can get a pretty damn realistic experience on a simulator for not a lot of money.
Fraction of it, yeah.
And it's a hell of a lot cheaper than going out and buying a race car and having to run it on the track.
But buying the race car is the cheap part. You can go buy.
the race car.
You can go buy. I could go buy a cheap Clubman's car or a GTI Challenge car for what my rig cost, right?
Yeah,
I can go buy it, but
you can't run it.
Buying a race car is the cheap part.
You got to put tires on it.
Fuel
you
in it.
got to do the discs on it. You got to maintain the engine.
I can do 100 laps a week in a Formula 1 car, in any other car, and get a feel for it and race. And more importantly, race against other guys. And this is actually the funny part for me. During COVID, nobody could race, right?
Yeah.
We couldn't race our karts or anything, so everybody was desperate to race. So we've got the guys at Killarney. So we've got Gavin and the guys that do the commentating at Killarney, the voices that you hear on the So Frankie Yennis and Gavin Fleming. So they actually Gary, they actually broadcast our races. So we stream it like 8 o'clock, whatever, on a Wednesday night.
I'm actually surprised that I never saw you on those leagues in Assetto
No, but I never really raced the
Didn't you do the Seta League
No, I
in
started racing
2020?
in 2020. Yeah,
No, but the league in 2020 when they had that lockdown race in...
No, I didn't do that lockdown race. No, I started after it. I started later in 2020.
Okay, because I raced those lockdown races, and when you said now you did a Seta
I did some
Corsa in
Fiat 500
2020.
races. There was like a local Fiat 500 thing at Killarney and stuff. But that was my old kit. I was so slow.
Yeah.
But I only really started the leagues with iRacing, with the Masters guys. I've done some MSA. So now the funny thing is there's now actually races that are serious that's MSA sanctioned.
Yeah.
So you could actually be, and the guys got proper prize money last year.
Yeah.
When the MSA league, there's like a pro and a pro-am. I'm currently competing in the F4 and the Clio Cup MSA races, but I've not been to all of them. I started late and just for fun. But if you win that, it's proper. I think it's a few $1,000, like 12,000 rand or something. Like is the prize money for like 4 races.
Not bad.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're not gonna do it professionally in South Africa, sim racing. But what I mean is, where are you gonna race a race car and walk away after 4 races with 12,000 rand? We pay 1,000 plus per entry, and then you pay all these other things just to go and entertain the crowds, and they say thank you very much.
And it opens doors for you, like Jimmy Broadbent. That's, I think, one of the more famous sim racers out there that started making YouTube videos of taking silly cars on a Seta Corsa around the Nürburgring, and now he races with Misha in the 24 Hours Endurance Series at Nürburgring. He's part of a team that races those, what do you call it? Also that single-seater racing, but more like LMP style cars.
Okay.
But he's
so
and he's quite a good driver.
And the big thing for me was, we couldn't go racing, couldn't go karting, couldn't do anything. These sports and GT guys have their GT3 Porsches and their LMP cars standing in the garage. They can't use them, so we all started racing. But the magic for me was the adrenaline and the because actually more people watch the stream than would probably watch the racing at the track.
Real race,
so we'd have like over 1,000 people like watching this race. And if
but
you're
also because it was locked down, so people couldn't go anywhere.
No, exactly. But I mean, if you're streaming it, people are actually watching it. It's not like at Killarney, there's X thousand people, but most of them are like eating a hot dog and not watching the race. If you choose to stream it, you are there to watch it.
And there's that one dude who's making inappropriate comments because he thought he was logging into a different stream.
When are the ladies coming up? But what was so cool is I was actually the stresses and the actual you're not gonna get hurt or anything. But your ego is there,
Yes.
I'm going door to door with Johan Ferree or whoever or Robbie Tings. You are racing these guys head to head. And your goal is just, are you seeing this gap's getting a bit smaller? And you're like, you have to keep you are sweating bullets.
So even though it's virtual, the red mist is real.
The red mist is real. The stress is real. The butterflies are real.
I've had that lots of times where I'm racing and I'm driving hard and I'm trying to get to the front and you're having fights and battles with people, and then afterwards you're exhausted.
Oh yes,
I mean, you're sweating, you're hot, you're dripping, and the level of concentration. And then when I take the VR set
with the
off,
VR headset,
and I'm like, I gotta go outside and breathe for a few minutes because that was intense.
I need to if I've even a practice session. If I drive for like 30 minutes or so, I need to put another shirt on.
Yeah,
I'm soaked.
Yeah.
So the thing for me is, and the other thing is the racing is also, I got to meet all the sports and GT. I wasn't really friends with a lot of sport and GT guys because they're kind of a bit older folk, whatever. We weren't, I was moving in other circles. So now there's so many guys that I've now become mates with, and it's like, you've become friends, and you met the guys along the way now. You go to Killarney, you're like, hey, you finally meet the guys in person. We go to Samola. A whole lot of people there that I know that I met with sim racing.
It's really awesome.
So
sim racing opens doors. That's about that.
And it's a good way without spending crazy money. It doesn't cost nothing.
No,
if you're going to do it competitively, you're going to have to get iRacing, those things. But it doesn't have to be crazy.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than any kind of motorsport per year to do than.
Yeah. Because there's no maintenance cost, really.
Exactly.
The other
other
thing
than
is
upgrading
time.
your gear.
The thing that's underrated is time.
Yeah.
Because for me, I want to go practice for an hour or two. I can go now and I go practice.
Yeah.
And I go race on Wednesday night for an hour. I'm done. I go and eat. Right?
You don't have to book
If
the
you
track.
want to go and
you know.
do an hour of practice at Killarney, it takes a day out of your life and another day to get your car prepped and this ready and go get fuel.
And another 6 weeks at work to pay for it.
Exactly, exactly. So it's just it's a quick and easy, it's not full on racing. I know, I'm not trying to say if I can do the lap time with a Formula One car, I'm not saying I am Max Verstappen, know, but, for
there's still
for
value
no
in
cost,
it.
for no cost, I can get a part of that experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, guys, I think that pretty much wraps up sim racing.
Yeah.
I think we should just go upstairs, fire up my sim, do some lap times, and see who throws up on VR first.
Sounds like plan.
No, that'll be me. I will barf if you.
Like I will
I
admit,
can't do one lap.
the first couple of times I used the VR set, I did get a little bit of motion
bit
sickness.
wonky.
But the thing is, I had to, for my old graphics card, I run a GTX 1060 Ti, so it's pretty old card. For that thing to run VR, I have to turn all the Assetto graphics basically down quite a bit. So it doesn't bug me. I don't mind the graphics quality. It's the immersion and the field of vision is more important for me than having pretty things at the side of the track to look at.
Yeah.
It's still plenty realistic enough for me. But when your frame rate drops in VR,
that
it's
sucks.
very, very
That
disorienting.
Yes,
sucks.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Especially
that
if it
sucks.
drops whilst you're moving your head.
Oh,
Because
yes.
suddenly you're moving your head, but it stays there.
Disorientated.
That makes you feel very ill very quickly.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that makes you feel quite woozy is if you're using VR in a flight simulator. So
you're upside down.
I play a lot of flight simulators as well. Strangely enough, the going upside down, the aerobatics and that kind of stuff, it's not as bad as you would think it is. The thing that gets you is if you're flying in some small, narrow aircraft, for example, where you can look out the side of the cockpit and just look straight down at the ground. When you're taking off and you pull back on the stick and you see the ground drop away from you, that makes you feel a little bit.
Your stomach goes.
It's like when you've gone out and you've had a couple beers too many, that burp with a bit of foam on it. That's kind of what it feels like. But yeah,
so I think my closing kind of advice to guys wanting to get into it, because I went through the whole thing. Like within the past 4 years, I went from nothing to kind of getting into it. I think that in terms of kit, the advice that I'll give someone is start off with a G20, G920, something cheap. Start the one thing that maybe just start off with that and just get, a screen, start playing at your desk, whatever. Just first decide whether it's for you or not.
Yes.
Because you don't want to
100%.
end up spending 20K, 50K, 100K, whatever, and then it's
we'll
not
edit
really
that out
me.
for your wife. It's fine.
No, I mean, I'm talking about other people, obviously. So you don't want to spend that much money and then you're like, it's not really for me. We all been there. I bought myself a dirt bike and it's great and I never use it. And
But the other thing that I've started doing with my rig, for example, my VR set I bought used.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of gear on the used market that you
Buy
can
yourself
get
a
for
used-
much more reasonable pricing.
Buy yourself a used, either if you are convinced you will love it, you've did it on someone else and you're like, I have to do this, then you can, then I would suggest not going that route.
I'd tell you where I got into getting proper gear, like a proper seat and setup and not just a cheap wheel bolted to a desk. A buddy of mine had a play seat and a proper wheel hooked up to his Xbox. And something that we used to do quite often is we would get together at his place, we'd have a braai, have a couple of drinks, and do laps.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what kind of got me hooked on it.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have a rig, everyone knows someone who's got a rig.
Yeah.
Just have a social thing with it. You
Go-
know,
go
invite your
find
mates
out-
over.
Go and try it somewhere.
Go and try it
Go
somewhere.
and try it somewhere and make sure that it's for you. And if you go sit down, you're like, I'm hooked, I would do this all the time. Then I would say, get something like if money's no problem, go wild. Go buy the biggest asset
obviously,
tech
that's
or
always going to be
Summit
the
Cube
case.
that you can afford, whatever, go boss. But if you want to do it more budget conscious, the best bang for buck is get yourself. Moza is good. Moza is kind of entry-level direct drive. Thrustmaster is good, but you're looking for load cell pedals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you could do is if you have a Logitech or you've got a Thrustmaster or something with pedals, you could get a mod from Ricmotech or somewhere. It's going to cost you $1,000 or $3,000, but then you put a load cell into the thing, into the brake.
Yeah.
But you also, there are some local guys, or you can buy from eBay and all this stuff. You can buy, like, these plans. Actually, you would actually quite like that. You're a tinkerer, right? So you can build your own load cell pedal.
Yeah.
You can get the plans and stuff. It's going to end up costing you like $4,000, $5,000, whatever. But then you've got proper
It's more
feel.
than my wheel setup.
No, but then you've got but the difference between these three things that you need for sim racing. Never mind the quality of the kit.
Yeah.
First thing is you need load cell pedals.
Yeah.
That will make the biggest possible difference.
Yeah.
Secondly, what you need is your field of view for your screen is the most important thing ever.
Yes.
The most important thing. Even if you one screen, 3 screens, you need to have the screen at the correct distance from your face and have that set up, because you don't know this. If you're driving and your screen is too far or too close, I see people playing on a TV screen there and they sit here.
Yeah.
Your control of that car it's like you sitting in the boot of your car and trying to steer it with long arms. It just doesn't work. That's the most important. And then steering wheel, as long as you get some feedback, it's okay. That's not the most important thing. Those are the 3 things that you have to have if you want to have fun and do well. The rest is just immersion and doing it little bit better.
But I think the most important thing
is to enjoy yourself.
Enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And secondly,
to stay classy.
Stay classy.
Stay classy, San Diego.
En dan onthou die bumps, very bumpy, né? En dan op wheels and 2 left. Two left, als de bal, dan kan er als front is neer.